What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Street Voices. It's actually been a disaster today. First of all, we went to Grays. We tried to get some videos around there. No one wanted to talk. Then we went to Lakeside, realised that we had mic issues, went into the Apple shop to buy a new wire to try and make the mic work, and still nothing worked. So we've had to end up going back to an OG spot. You might recognise where we are right now. We're actually in Southend. So we're going to ask a few people some questions, and then we might have a special guest joining us later. So let's get into it anyway. So guys, the story didn't originally start off in Southend. We actually started off in Grays, but no one wanted to talk. So we decided to relocate to Lakeside, but after we arrived, when listening back to the audio, we realised that we were having mic issues, so we had to revert back to the old mic. We asked a few people for their opinions in Lakeside, but everyone was too busy shopping, so we had to relocate again, this time to Southend. Yeah, thank you for stopping by, man. What's your thoughts about, have you heard about the ceasefire in Palestine? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I've heard that on the news earlier.
Yeah? What's your thoughts about it? Do you support Palestine, Israel, or have you not got a side in it?
No, I ain't got a side in it. I'm just glad it's all over for them, and it's peace at last, you know.
Great answer. And what's your thoughts about what's going on in our country right now?
It's fucked. Well, forgive my language. Yeah, the country's at it as far as I'm concerned. There's too many people here, and that's my fault. You know what I mean? Younger generation, there's no hope for work. You know what I mean? Buying a house and things like that is more or less impossible these days for anybody.
No worries. And one last question. What would you do to change the country if you was Prime Minister?
Deport all people that shouldn't be here.
I appreciate you stopping by there, man. Thank you for your time.
No sweat.
Sweet to meet you.
No, I don't want to be online. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We're currently in Southend right now. We've been asking people loads of questions, and we've only actually had one response so far. It seems that no one wants to actually talk about what's going on in the world. I mean, I don't know if everyone's thinking they're too busy or something because it's a Saturday night. But I thought I'd use this moment to just talk about the ceasefire that recently was announced. I mean, my opinions on it is we had a ceasefire announced a few days ago. It's starting to go into place now as we speak. Obviously, my thoughts on this, it's good for now, I suppose, to stop the genocide being as rough. You want to talk to me?
About Gaza?
Yeah, you want to talk?
Yes.
Oh, brilliant, mate.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I hate Israel, the scumbags. They need to be burned to the ground, wiped off the face of this earth. Support Palestine, free Gaza. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, yeah?
No,
Death to Israel.
One more. What's your thoughts about the recent ceasefire announcement?
Brother, ceasefire now, there's nothing left. They want peace, now there's nothing left, brother. It's like 90% damaged. So now you want peace. How about come to my house and receive peace, innit? Yeah?
We both know this isn't going to be the end, you know. The reason this...
Run the world, yeah? Run the world. It's a sad fact, but the money, the banking system, so it doesn't matter. You control everything, but as long as you know, keep yourself aware of things that's going on. Not that you can do nothing, but just keep yourself aware. Support the brothers in Palestine now.
No worries. And one last question, man. Thank you for stopping by. I mean, why do you think Israel has so much control over the world? Because, you know...
Banking system.
They run the banks.
Banking system, bruv. Yeah, JP Morgan back in the day. Research it from then. You know, from like world wars and that. It's from then. That's what it is. But free Gaza, free Palestine, yeah?
Nice one, bro. Thank you. So, guys, as I was saying, I think that guy pretty much agreed with me. My thoughts on this whole situation is that it's good that we have a ceasefire in place, of course. You know, it's at least, if it doesn't completely stop the killing, at least it slows it down for now. But we all know this was going on since way before October 7th, you know. So I just pray that we do see proper peace in Palestine, you know. End the occupation, and end the illegal occupation of Palestine. And let the Palestinians just live in peace, like, end the occupation, pretty much. But yeah, what do you guys think anyway? Let me know in the comments anyway. Drop a comment down below if you think that the ceasefire will actually change anything. But yeah, we'll carry on trying to ask some people some more questions anyway. What's your thoughts about what's going on in our country right now?
I don't even want to answer that right now.
What's your thoughts about what's going on over in Palestine right now?
I haven't really been looking at it, to be honest.
Don't know much about it.
No,
Not
not too
on that.
much.
But I just think the country's a bit
Sorry.
fucked right now, if I'm honest.
What would you do to change it if you was in charge for a day?
If I was in charge for a day, I don't know. Stop letting loads of people in the country over the boats, I guess. I don't know.
Probably
What
the
do you
same
think?
reason,
Same?
yeah. That's what's going on right now. I think that's what needs to stop, innit? If the boats don't come
There's
over.
too many paedophiles being brought into the country. Yeah.
I'll let you enjoy your night. Thank you. So guys, it's definitely been a very stressful day. I mean, you know, we've been out all day. We've actually probably spent more hours out today than we have with any other episode, and we've got like 2 to 3 clips max. But luckily, I'm not sure if you guys remember from episode 2, we had an absolute legend join us. He exposed all of the Israeli lies. He exposed the way that the media has been treating the situation in Palestine, and it was actually one of our most viewed videos. And I've had multiple requests of people asking, can you please bring this guy back on for a full interview? Can you please bring him back on for a podcast or something? We want to hear more from this man. And luckily, he's on his way to meet us now. He's going to be here in the next few minutes. And hopefully we can ask him some good questions, man, and hear some interesting responses, because he's definitely got a lot of knowledge on the subject, and I know you guys are going to hopefully like this, so let's get into it anyway. So guys, just a quick interval. If you want to support the show, you can go to www.s2fmerch.com and you can find all the Street Voices merchandise on there. Every purchase you make helps fund us, helps us fund the show, and it's much appreciated. So yeah, www.s2fmerch.com. So guys, we've got a very special guest with us. If you don't remember, the absolute legend OD is back with us to answer some important questions, and thank you very much for spending the time. I suppose first things first.
I wasn't expecting to see you earlier.
I know, I wasn't expecting. Yeah, I bumped into you. Imagine this, guys. We're going around looking for clips, and I bumped into a very special man, and he said he'll be around later on. So I want to thank you very much for spending the time. But I suppose first of all, you've probably heard about what happened, over the last few days with the ceasefire in Palestine and everything like that. I mean, what's your thoughts about all that, really?
With regards to this, with regards to the ceasefire, why has that come about? And the reason it's come about is the failure of the IDF to do what they said they were going to do, which is to go and take Gaza. And anyone that really understands the situation on the ground has an appreciation for military strategy, etc., would recognise that wasn't ever really going to happen. The same as with the Hezbollah in Lebanon, when they invaded Lebanon quite a few years ago. I'm not sure how many, it's over a decade. They said that they were going to take the space where Hezbollah have been entrenched for the last several years, and they did invade Lebanon, but they couldn't. It's a bit like Vietnam in that it's all well and good carpet bombing. You can see the same thing with Russia and Ukraine as well, to be fair. When you have an indigenous population that are mobilised to fight an external threat, it's a lot harder to be the aggressor than it is to be defensive. And so on the one hand, they've levelled Gaza and levelled all the hospitals and levelled everything, but what that's done is it means that the people that they were claiming was the reason that they did it, Hamas, the terrorists, that was never really the agenda. The agenda has always been to occupy Gaza, and it's something that can be tracked back, more than half a century. So basically they've got to a point where they can't get any further. The main reason why Netanyahu has no intention of stopping this war at all, and hasn't, and the main reason he started it is because he's been up on corruption charges for about 3 or 4 years. He's defrauded the Israeli state and the Israeli people. He's been complicit in major corruption. There's a lot of evidence to back it up. He's probably going to be found guilty, but a bit like with Zelensky, who's essentially an unelected leader, really, they're in a situation where the moment that war stops, they've got to answer for the crimes they've committed. So the worst thing that can happen in the world of Netanyahu or the world of Zelensky is the conflict ends. And so with regards to this peace thing, it's a hell of a lot to do with the egomania of Donald Trump and wanting to get the Nobel Peace Prize. But more than anything, it's to deal with the fact that all around the world, even in the nations that have had entrenched Zionism within the formation of their governments for decades now, people have become aware that there is no excuse for their behaviour. And even in America, where several years ago they introduced a law that made it a federal offence to criticise Israel or criticise aspects of Zionism. The only people that get around that, for obvious reasons, are Orthodox Jews. But that's a federal law they introduced into America several years ago. But the American people have risen up against them, and a lot of people that were actually ardent supporters of their agenda, say for example Charlie Kirk, they have finally seen the reality, and people have started to recognise, I suppose, the last point I made when we spoke previously, that you're part of the problem or you're part of the solution. So their solution to people turning against them is they can stop this conflict. The thing is, the underlying causes and the ways that affects not just the people of Gaza but people in the Western world, all of our lives, that's still continuing. And it's something that in this moment people need to focus and centre their attention on, because the same as they invaded Lebanon 10 years ago and they invaded Lebanon 30 years before that, and there was a first Gaza invasion 70 years ago and then another Gaza invasion, you know, they're not going to, their agenda doesn't stop, they're just taking a break. Their agenda is to dispossess us and furnish and empower the globalist self-proclaimed elite that they represent and are on a payroll of. And actually the same people in the corridors of power that engineer these sort of issues are exactly the same people that are on message with this totalitarian elitism. The simple facts of the matter is that there are, a small but very, very well furnished, remunerated, resourceful and intelligent group of psychopaths that know what team they're on, and all they have to do is make sure that everybody else stays divided. So yeah, basically they want the smoke to go away, because they've written, a bit like Ukraine did, the IDF have written a cheque that their ass couldn't cash, and now they've got to do what in military terms you'd call a strategic withdrawal.
A point I wanted to touch on of what you said is you brought up Charlie Kirk. I mean, I think you made it quite obvious, but just for the people that didn't take it in properly, who do you think was behind the killing of Charlie Kirk, and why do you think that he was killed?
I don't actually know. I don't know. I don't know much at all. I'm aware of a lot, but I think there are some very clear indicators. My favourite Shakespearean quote would be, "Methinks thou doth protest too much." And so within a couple of hours of Charlie Kirk being assassinated, you have the Prime Minister of Israel coming out and essentially saying, it wasn't us. Methinks thou doth protest too much. It doesn't really matter what I think, because I can honestly say that until after this guy was assassinated, I'd never heard of him. And if I could care less, I probably would. After he died, it's the same with, when Donald Trump got his ear pierced. Yeah? I found that, I just look at things and they don't make sense. So with the pandemic, I'm not like some conspiracy theorist, and as soon as they called a lockdown and said that there's a global pandemic, I'm like, oh no, it's part of Agenda 20. No, I'm very sort of quite simple in my appraisals of things, actually. I just pay attention to things that a lot of people don't. And it didn't add up. So all I know is if you've got the sort of rifle that the shooter used in that Trump ear piercing scenario, yeah, you don't miss them now. You don't miss them now. Like, you really don't. It's like shooting a fish in a barrel. Do you know what I mean? You got a rifle like that from that range. How do you miss? And also there were people that knew in the crowd, all Trump supporters, going, there's someone up on the fucking roof, right? So there was people in the crowd that knew. What were the security services doing then? Like, if there's random members of the public that are just there to worship their false idol Donald Trump, then how is it the people that are paid God knows how much money to protect him don't realise there's a guy with a rifle on a roof when there's a bunch of people in the crowd that do? All right, so I see things like that and I'm like, hang on, that doesn't add up. And I use my intellect and perception to try and find how it might add up. So with a pandemic, when they introduced a face mask mandate and a sanitizer thing, I remember that from tiny little bit of school I attended, that your body's first line of defence is bacteria on your skin. Skin's an organ, and your last line of defence is the white blood cells in your blood that are created by oxygenation. So if you put a mask on your face and don't go outside, you've got less oxygen, which means you've got less white blood cells, and that's your last line of defence diminished. And if you put a sanitizer, which is like an antibiotic, all over your hands, then your first line of defence is gone. It makes no bloody sense. And if I can work that out when I left school at 14, then all these experts just doesn't add up. So these are the reasons I question things, not because I'm like a conspiracy theorist, but unlike a lot of people that have been sleepwalking into the apocalypse for too long to mention, I'm not a coincidence theorist. So yeah, basically when he got shot, Trump, that was a warning. That was a warning shot. Yeah, that was the same people probably that killed Charlie Kirk, probably that killed John Frederick Kennedy, probably are behind Julian Assange being locked up without charge for God knows how long, probably been stamping all over my life for about 15 years, but that's a different story, and completely different story that I'm not going into. But yeah, like at the end of the day, as I said to you before, the thing that terrifies these people most is people knowing the truth. You know, that's what terrifies them. So Charlie Kirk, I knew nothing about this guy, and I looked up one or two things on YouTube after the shooting. Or actually, no, I looked at the news report, and then on PooTube you've got the suggestions, and so I saw something of him at the Oxford Union getting, as you would say, cooked. Yeah. By some floppy-haired ginger boffin, right? Just absolutely rinsed him. It was like shocking. Rinsed the guy. And I watched that, and I swear I could see in that moment there, like, that's going to affect you. You know, Charlie Kirk, like most high prominent people in the Western world, America, Britain, wherever, they're narcissists. They're narcissists, like, a lot of the time. The thing is with a narcissist, though, is they're possessed by pride, and they'll block things out with their pride. But if you actually manage to get through that and make them think about something, if nothing else, their pride will make them have to look in the mirror and go, well, am I who I think I am? You know, and I think that happened with Donald Trump to a point. So then they had to draw him in line and pierce his ear and go, look, mate, yeah, that miss wasn't by accident. Have a think about it. And then suddenly he was elected on a mandate of ending wars, etc., etc. And for all his guff, you know, he's from the Adolf Hitler school of rhetoric. Think of the biggest lie you can and keep repeating it. You know, this guy says that he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. Well, yeah, I mean, American. It should be the American Peace Prize. Did you remember when Obama got a Peace Prize? Because he was going to close Guantanamo. And he got his Peace Prize before he even became president. 8 years later, Guantanamo's still running. And he sent God knows how much money into Afghanistan to go and blow up people in caves. So, yeah, and by the way, that's where the problem started with the Ukraine thing. Because you go back over 10 years ago and the CIA were creating massive bases in Ukraine, training bases. Yeah, so Obama began, but it was mostly, ironically, Donald Trump says he's going to solve the war in Ukraine and it's Biden's war. No, it's Donald Trump who was president who would have had to sign off on those CIA bases being created in Ukraine, which is where they trained and mobilised the Azov regiment. You know, those neo-fascist people that literally wear the SS insignia that the Germans used to. And basically, it's apparent, not because of my opinion, but there's people that were very close to Charlie Kirk, like, who's that cartoon newsreader? You know, our Family Guy. But he was on Fox News. Tom Tucker. Tucker Carlson, that's it. Yeah, Tucker Carlson. So he was close friends with Charlie Kirk. And about a week ago, I mean, I'm no fan of him. You know, I'm no fan of Jordan Peterson particularly, but there's admirable traits. Even if you don't agree with somebody's politics, if I could care less about politics, I would. But if a man's got a spinal column and is willing to stand up for what he believes in, you've got to respect that, even if what they believe in is misguided. So he stood up in front of like 70,000 people at Charlie Kirk's memorial, and he was close friends with him, and he basically said in a stadium in front of 60,000, 70,000 people, they did it. Now, I mean, when you bear in mind that Fox News is run by News Corp, Rupert Murdoch, who's the most ardent Zionist in the world this side of George Soros, yeah, you know, the balls on the guy ought to be admired, whether you like him or not. You admire the courage of that man. You know, so he said that. Also, Candace Owens was incredibly close friends with him, and Candace Owens is not someone I agree with on a lot of things. I very much admire her courage and her spirit, and she is right about some things. She's very, very intelligent and articulate woman. So yeah, I have seen that she has very much got the bit between her teeth. Every single programme she's put out for the last month is all about Charlie Kirk and unpinning different things. And there's one guy that I learned a lot from, is incredibly educated, intelligent and insightful man. He's called Max Blumenthal. I can only presume part of the reason he hasn't already had his head pierced is possibly because of his second name, but that's a guess, and it may be an ignorant one. But Max Blumenthal is, yeah, he's somebody that has been a very, very outspoken critic of what a lot of people would conveniently call the shadow state for a long time. And he did some deep digging, and he's got some amazing connections and some amazing sources. And basically, it turns out that Charlie Kirk was hauled into the, you know, I forget the organisation that he represents, but he represents some big organisation. It's a Turning Point, yeah. So that's essentially around, you know, evangelical Christianity, which in America has been used as a Trojan horse, evangelical Christianity, for Zionist agendas. Okay, because of course the first bit of the Bible is the Old Testament, which is essentially interpretation of the Torah. So this guy Max Blumenthal has found out that he got hauled in by the people that run Turning Point as an association, because of course they're funding. Think about all the different campaigns, media coverage. That costs a lot of money. Do you know how much money it costs to hire a stage, to hire lighting, to hire sound engineers? So it costs a lot of money. And so, basically, he was hauled in and told, look, you've questioned Israel, and that means that you're working against us. And when he was accused of being against them, when he's been such an ardent advocate, I suppose his pride kicked in, and he's like, hang on a minute, you can't critique me. So at that point, he started drifting away from him. And you can see, and I don't know, in my own mind, I could be wrong, but it seems like that kid who put it on him in the Oxford Union, it's like that he'd have watched that back. Yeah, he'd have watched that back, someone who does so much public speaking, and it would have made him think. And then when the first time he says anything that's even marginally, remotely critical of the people that are funding him, and to no small extent he's been represented, and then they question his character and question his motives, he got a bee in his bonnet, puffed his chest up, and was like, no. And so he started turning on them. And so it's not my opinion, but a lot of my opinions are formulated on listening to people that are more interested, more educated on specific topics than I am. I'm a generalist, not a specialist. And so basically, having seen the factors in the equation, and then you add on top of that the Prime Minister of Israel, from several thousand miles away, decided within a couple of hours he had to come out and essentially say it wasn't us. And there's a lot of smoke there, right?
So next question is, I guess, how do you think that Israel's got such control over all of our politicians, not just in the UK but in America and all around Europe, really? 2/3 of the world probably is under sort of an Israeli control. So why do you think that is? Do you think there's some sort of blackmail on the people, or what's your thoughts on that, really?
I reckon control's a misconception. Like every single word in the English language that begins con, it's a con. It's a construct. The idea of control is an absolute fallacy. So when you look at the people that have power, a big part of the reason with various different virtue signalers and professors of truth, that would claim to lead the revolution. I mean, I don't even understand that word. A revolution is going round in a circle. So if you have a revolution, where do you end up? Right where you began. A revolution ain't the solution, it's the problem. And so there's been very, very, very many revolutions that are basically a metamorphosis of the same agenda. So when it comes to control, the reason that the people that are in control is because they're wise enough to know you can't be in control. Control is a fiction. There is no system of control. There's a system of compliance and apathy, and people are apathetic to all the consequences of their compliance. Okay? So it's more about encouragement, coercion, carrots, sticks. If you work with us, we can make your dreams come true. Look at Tony Blair. All it will cost you is your soul. Look at Tony Blair. Look at his boat. All right. so like the thing is that they don't have control. They have people in very, 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 very powerful places that are part of their control mechanism. It's clandestine, So I mentioned JFK earlier, and John Frederick Kennedy was obviously assassinated, and it was obviously something that was allowed to happen by the security agencies, a bit like Donald Trump getting his ear pierced. There's no excuse for that, right? So if there's no excuse for that, there has to be a reason, and the only logical reason is that it was in their interest to let it happen. Now, how was it made to be in their interest? I don't know. I'm not going to talk about things, claim to know things I don't know, but I can make very educated guesses. So the control that you refer to is more to do with lobbying, it's more to do with tribalism, it's more to do with them and us, and what it's really about, what underpins all of this, is that most people will do anything for a pound note. Sadly, the Western world is predominantly populated by whores, and I'm not, and a lot of them are male. Look at Keir Starmer, yeah. So look at Tony Blair. That's a whore. That is somebody that whored himself out, and he didn't just whore himself out. He whored out the entire nation of Great Britain. Yeah. If it wasn't for George W. Bush and Tony Blair, Islamic fundamentalism would be a problem restricted to the Middle East. It wouldn't be something that would be visiting Western countries and causing so many problems as it is. And it is. It very much is. And it's disgraceful that a lot of these same virtue signalers that talk about the system of control, etc., will turn around and say, oh, well, you can't criticise these people because of the colour of their skin, because they're so fearful of being labelled as racist or anti-Semitic or whatever. But the simple fact of the matter is that the truth is very rarely convenient. And if it was, then we wouldn't be living in a nation that I call fake Britain, that is predominantly populated by people that can't go a single day without lying. I mean, I'm not asking you this question literally. I'd be putting it on you if I did. But do you remember the last day you went without lying? I think if most people ask themselves in the mirror that question, they'd have difficulty coming up with an answer. I know I would have about 15 years ago. So yeah, like it's not so much about control, it's about influence, and what that boils down to is dynasties. So if you look at any government in the world, you'll see that most of the people that are in influential positions are products of nepotism. And so blood is thicker than water. And if you want to join a team, you want to be on the winning team, then look at the team that's metamorphosized their methods of control and are doing so right now. Over the last 15 years, we're in a paradigm shift. And so I actually believe the same people that have been orchestrating the civilized world over the last couple of thousand years are exactly the same bloodlines and dynasties that were ruling the world a couple of thousand years ago. And so it's no coincidence the Roman Empire ends, the Roman Catholic Church begins, and then the Roman Catholic Church is replaced by monarchism because Henry VIII threw a spanner in the works. But then the monarchy still pays tribute to the Vatican until Henry VIII. Yeah, and it went to the Roman Empire to Roman Catholic Church, the Holy Roman Empire. There's a little bit in the middle there where you had like the Merovingians and the Franks and whatever that had a lot of influence and power. Then monarchism, then parliamentarianism, and each of these things lasts in general roughly more or less a couple of hundred years until the general population starts to get wise to the methods of control, and then they have to reinvent it. So what we're moving from now is from parliamentarianism, democracy. People have gotten wise to that. There is no democracy. I mean, out of the last 8 different prime ministers in this nation, how many of them have won a popular vote? When was the last time that a president in the United States of America was anyone other than the highest campaign fund? If you look at every single American president going back decades, they're always the one with the biggest campaign fund. Now, who do you think has the most money? Well, it's very simple. If you think about the pandemic and all the governments in the world are in debt because of all the COVID measures and whatever, here's a question for you. If America runs the world, or Russia runs the world, or China runs the world, or Britain runs the world, then who is it they owe money to? How is it that America and Britain are in so much debt? They can go around carpet bombing different parts of the world ad hoc, but apparently we've got to pay some accountant somewhere. Like, it doesn't quite add up, does it? So the thing is that it's not so much about control, it's about establishment. And so what people don't realise about the establishment is what established our society. Basically, people, more often than not, are chasing money. The problem with that is that money's a fiction. Money's a fiction created by the powerful to keep the weak fighting amongst themselves. But weak-minded people see things in a material world. That's why, I can't understand someone having a load of money and going and buying a bunch of stuff that says Gucci. It just, to me, demonstrates a lack of imagination. I don't think that's clever. I think it's sad, genuinely sad. Because that what you give your energy to is what will be promoted. It's as simple as that. And what people have been giving their energy to for so bloody long is this structure, which materially benefits them, but spiritually destroys them. And so that's what it really comes down to. It's less about control, and it's more about if you want to get someone to do something, you really want to get somebody to do something, the best way you can do that is not ask them or tell them, it's make them think it's their own idea. And so it's not so much about control, because the simple fact of the matter is, if everybody got off anti-social media and stopped using Meta tomorrow, that would be a big problem in the world solved. But why don't people do it? Is it because Mark Zuckerberg controls them? No, it's because their proclivity towards convenience controls them. And so if you're living in a world where you're under tyranny, which we are, obviously it's nowhere near as brutal as Gaza, but why? Because if they started doing that stuff here, there'd be an uprising, and we're in a position to do so about it. This is the problem in America. This is why they want gun control in America. I mean, obviously there's a lot of good reasons to have gun control, but if you understand the American Constitution and what it's based upon, America exists for one reason, and that's because they didn't want to be ruled by a king. They didn't want to be ruled by a monarch. That's what the whole American Revolution was about. And so enshrined is, obviously they have, I forget what the document's called, I guarantee every American will be like, how does he not know the name of that? But they have their very specific charter, like the Fifth Amendment, the various different amendments. The thing is, the amendment takes it away from the truth of what it really was. And the reason why one of the very first things on that document is the right to bear arms is for exactly the scenario that's being created now, where the government decide that they're going to act in an imperial fashion, i.e. like a monarch. And if you look at everything that Donald Trump is doing right now, his behaviour is like that of a monarch, like a Henry VIII. I'm going to do what I want and you're going to like it or you're going to suffer. And so they've already shut down freedom of speech in America. As I said, they introduced a law several years ago. Why did they introduce that law several years ago? Because they'd already planned this invasion of Gaza. Why is it that all these people that essentially, it's an invasion from Gaza. An invasion, they got like golf buggies, mate. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, they're coming in like golf buggies, coming in on hand gliders or some crap, right? That's not an invasion that can't be stopped. That can be stopped. The same as Donald Trump getting his ear pierced or Charlie Kirk getting shot, maybe. Not so certain about that, but probably and definitely, because I learnt a lot about this. Oliver Stone did an amazing film called JFK, but I've done a hell of a lot of reading past that, a hell of a lot of reading. And by the way, remember Trump, he not only said that he was going to stop sending munitions to Ukraine and stop the different wars, which he hasn't done, proven liar, but also he said that he was going to release all of the JFK files and all of the Epstein files, but he didn't, did he? And why? Because the people he's working for, that he's on a payroll of, or maybe he's not working on a payroll, maybe he just doesn't want to get shot in the head, and so they don't want that to come to light, because if the JFK files were released, it would become as obvious to other people as it has been to me for at least 20 years who did it.
Yeah, and one last thing really, I just wanted to ask you, what's your thoughts on about how our country's heading right now, with all of the chaos going on, you could say?
It's heading in the same direction it's been heading in for a long time now. I was aware of a lot of the problems that people are starting to find impossible to ignore a good 15 years ago. And where we're heading towards is obviously a sort of totalitarian elitist nightmare where everybody has a credit score, everyone has an ID card. I mean, this is actually the agenda of the Germans. That's what fascism really is. It's about, you have to be loyal to the state before anything else, even to your own principles or your own morals. So that's a big part of where we've gotten to. There's an awful lot of virtue signalling in this nation and a lot of buzzwords and different things, but people aren't really paying attention to the fact that not just civil liberties and freedom of speech, but the law and democracy as a notion is gradually being eroded. Everything revolves around populist rhetoric, and so if you don't support Tommy Robinson, then you must be some snowflake sort of transformer fucking virtue signaler or something, right? Whereas and if you think that the genocide in Gaza is a bad thing, then it's polar opposites. And the problem is then you have no middle ground, and what ends up happening is people are only allowed to talk about the things that people are allowed to talk about, and I think the worst aspects, and there were many, I mean take your pick, but the worst aspects of the lockdown was stopping people being able to communicate. It's very important that people share their ideas, whether they're different or not, but what's also important is not necessarily to have respect for other people's ideas. I don't respect the ideas of Jeffrey Epstein or bloody Tony Blair or somebody. I've got no respect for those people at all. But just because I disagree with somebody on a lot of things, say for example Tucker Carlson or Jordan Peterson or Russell Brand or various different people, there still may be things that they have to offer. And the biggest problem where I see this nation going is, it was predicted by George Orwell. It's a simple fact of people attacking each other in order to feel more comfortable in their precepts. And unfortunately most precepts that most people have in this nation are based around illusory notions. So there isn't freedom of speech in this country. There isn't a rule of law in this country. If there was a rule of law, then half the people in Parliament would be in prison. That's a fact. They're guilty of treason, they're guilty of corruption, they're guilty of fiddling the public purse. I mean, most of them have actually been found guilty of stealing money off of the state on top of all of their expenses and their second homes and their six-figure salary for rocking up at work maybe 30 times a year. So yeah, where things are going are where the orchestrators, those people that don't control things but they set the agendas and set the narratives, where things are heading is where they want them to be headed, where everybody's divided, and you have to pick what little tribe you're in, and that way everyone's divided, and all the little tribes are too busy arguing with each other to pay attention to the people that are screwing all of them over at the same time. So yeah, I think where I'd like to think the country is going is that things have got so obviously diabolical that the very things that anyone that might be proud to be from this nation would be proud of have been so eroded that people need to realise it's time to stand up and be counted. These people have shown their hand. They've shown what their agenda is. They show they have no desire to do anything other than subjugate and control us. And as soon as they've got technology to replace our efforts, you know, to be their foot soldiers, to be their cleaners, to be their, you know, their little administrators, then they're going to come and wipe you all out the same way that they were wiping out the people in Gaza. Because at the end of the day, they don't recognise the right of other people to live. They only recognise whether they're useful to their life or not.
Yeah, I said that was great, man. I just wanted to say one more time a big thank you for you to coming out. I know the people can't see. Yeah, I was about to say the people can't see how cold it is, but it's freezing out here right now. I'm shaking a little bit. Yeah, but yeah, I'm sure everyone's happy to hear from you again. And will we ever see you again? Will the people ever see you again? Or
no, it's distinctly possible. Yeah, I'm not exactly inconspicuous. Yeah.
No worries, man. But thank you everyone for watching anyway. I hope you enjoyed the interview, and remember to like, comment, subscribe for more videos. Peace out, guys. Thank you.